everyone, Britt here from Torq. I am joined by a very special guest today, renowned cybersecurity researcher and analyst, Francis Odum. Francis, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's kick things off by talking about some of the challenges SOCs face, such as alert fatigue and false positives. How do solutions like Torq HyperSOC address these issues?
First of all, thanks for having me again, and really great to be speaking to you. There are a number of challenges that modern SOC teams are currently facing right now. I think 4 ones really quickly come to mind. I think number one, as more companies have evolved and moved to the cloud over the last few years, what we've seen is just a tool sprawl currently now, whereby there's just a lot more data that security teams are having to deal with. There are a lot more devices, a lot more applications. And as a result of that, what you have is a lot of these tools are providing a lot of alerts, which takes us to the second major challenge is just a lot more alerts for security teams to deal with. And I think the third challenge that this leads us to is with the high volume of alerts, there's just a real shortage of skilled professionals to address and tackle and investigate a lot of these alerts, threats and cases. I think all of these leads to the last point whereby security teams are just bombarded, right? There's just so much for them. There's a lot of tools. There's a shortage of professionals. There are lots of distress that they have to keep up to. What that whole leaves them with is a situation whereby, they're burnt out and there's a lot of people who are just quite frustrated within the industry. I think we're seeing solutions, obviously, like Torq, Hyperautomation, who have really just emerged to solve a lot of these challenges in general by having an automation piece that could help solve issues around skill shortages, managing and triaging a lot of these different alerts and integrating a lot of these tools into one centralized or unified SOC platform in general. So it's a big challenge, and I think we're actively working to solve that in the industry.
Francis, you mentioned something just there a little bit earlier. Given the talent shortages in cybersecurity, how can hyperautomation platforms empower organizations to retain their security professionals?
Yeah, I think a huge part of it comes down to analyst productivity. How do you improve the productivity? So in the case in an SMB or a mid-market company that maybe just doesn't have enough employees or staff, or they just can't hire, they don't have the budget to hire as many staff, it's like, okay, you're only left with a handful of analysts, and your goal now should be, how do you get the best out of your existing analysts and for the tools that you're using? I think hyperautomation solutions, obviously like the HyperSOC delivered by Torq, generally help to automate a lot of processes. And with a HyperSOC solution, you're generally able to automate as much as over 90% of a tier 1 analyst task responsibility. And I think that's a huge game changer, as well as I think over 95% too of general fewer alerts really that an analyst has to deal with or investigate. I think when you add up a lot of these numbers using hyperautomation solutions, I think what that leaves you with is a situation whereby you're just significantly able to enhance productivity of existing analysts, even if you're short-staffed, and just get a lot more out of your existing team.
You mentioned that enterprises have not yet fully realized the benefits of their automation platforms. What are the main barriers to achieving these benefits, and how can teams overcome them?
Yeah, I think, it's still a major challenge. I think we're still very far, maybe not very far, but we're still ways from fully a fully autonomous SOC. So I think some of the barriers that I think different companies are faced, I think it's very different depending on the types of company you talk about. I think the biggest challenge, quite frankly, is just an awareness, a training and an education component, whereby I think in the past, security teams have been burnt by just maybe trusting an automation tool that maybe wasn't the best for them. In that case, maybe there was a bot or whatever, maybe made a wrong trigger, or something was left not undone, or let's say something wasn't patched correctly, or a device wasn't isolated properly, and maybe that's led to issues within the company. I think, but those are existing and legacy technologies of the past, and I think companies have felt burnt from those. The second one would be, quite frankly, the variety of attacks in general. general. I think the sophistication of the types of attacks, obviously, as we've seen, AI has lowered the barrier to entry for attackers. A lot more attacks of companies are facing a variety of attacks. That's still a very significant challenge about how do you actually go about managing a lot of these variety of attacks. You always need a human in the loop in some of those processes. So I think that's been a barrier. The last piece, quite frankly, has to do with vendor lock-in. I think companies are still really stuck on some of these legacy solutions, and they just feel like, oh wow, we just can't move all of our data or all of our information. Again, maybe it comes back to this education component of like they don't know the benefits of more emerging cloud-native AI solutions, but many companies just feel locked in on some of these older solutions. I think as companies are enlightened about how you could use more HyperSOC solutions, they'd be more willing to adopt solutions like Torq.
Your report highlights the shift towards the fully autonomous security operations center. So I want to know, can you elaborate on the key technological advancements driving this shift and expected timeline for widespread adoption?
Yeah, I think in general, we're definitely moving to a future of an autonomous SOC. I think it's going to be in stages. I think right now as I mentioned earlier, we're probably at a situation where we're probably close to 90% of a tier 1 SOC analyst task could be done by just leveraging AI and some of the advancements in technologies. I think some of the data that I've seen in the industry, maybe close to 30 to 40% of a tier 2 SOC analyst role could be fully autonomous in some level. And as you get up like tier 3 analysts, maybe just less than 10%, somewhere around that number. I do see a future of a fully autonomous SOC whereby pretty much a lot of from all of the integration to different applications, different tooling, all the way to how do you integrate, normalize past the data, and how do you really make sure you have really good remediation and response capabilities all integrated into one solution. I think we could absolutely see that. I think a lot of that has been driven by just advancement in LLM technologies primarily, and not just natural language processing are driving this new wave of automation. We do see a future where there would be a fully autonomous or fully driven. I think we're always going to have humans in the loop. Humans are always going to play a key role in being able to look through, almost give it a high-level overview of situations and cases. So we're still going to need humans, but we're definitely, as an industry, we do need to get to a stage whereby a lot of processes are automated by AI.
So let's talk a little bit more about AI. So your report discusses the role of AI and LLMs in transforming SOC operations. So how do you see these technologies helping SOCs today?
In terms of AI in general, I think one of the ways, faster response time has to be one. Like, I think just when you think about the mean time to respond and detect the threat, I think in general, when we think about the mean time to respond it's just lagged over the years, but with advancements in LLMs and AI over recent years, I think number two, another way we could see AI helping the SOC in general is just better risk prioritization and triage processes in general. I think in general, we do have an opportunity for AI to really help cutting down the number of alerts that teams and SOC teams have to deal with still. And that could be prioritizing alerts just based off severity. I think AI would be very helpful in doing that. Lastly, I think another way, maybe I briefly mentioned it, around better information around investigation of threats. And what I mean by that has to be with, I feel like right now we have lots of manual processes whereby there's just lots of information on different applications, disparate applications, different systems that don't necessarily talk to each other. But I think with the benefit of AI in general, what we're seeing is a case whereby we're able to easily more integrate a lot of different tools and different solutions. Once you have more integrated solutions or systems talking to each other, especially third-party intel sources, being able to bring in some of that information. What that does is it gives more intelligence, there's a lot more data, and it's more easy for analysts themselves to make better investigations and make good decisions on threat hunting capabilities. We see AI in general helping and driving the SOC forward from response times, prioritization, as well as better intelligence.
With the increasing complexity and volume of security threats, just how important is it for SOCs to integrate with hyperautomation solutions?
Yeah, I think in general, when we think about the complexities that teams are currently facing right now and why they need automation, I think it really does come down to productivity. It comes down to how do we make sure that we're just getting better as an industry, quite frankly, at being able to detect threats and respond to them as quickly as possible. I think in general, one of the reasons why we need more automation solutions, quite frankly, is just improving analyst productivity, getting really better at the mean time to detection and responding in general. Quite frankly, just helping the industry with the talent shortages that we're dealing with. I think going forward, supply for cybersecurity talent, I don't know how much that's going to continue to grow, but I think at the same time, companies want to be able to make the most of their existing capabilities and features. I think using a high automation solution automates a lot of processes, saves a lot of cost, time, and money that companies ultimately want.
The report mentions a significant uptick in investment activity and automation in AI SOC companies. So what factors would you say, Francis, are driving this investment surge, and how do you think it's changed the future landscape of SOC automation?
I think, yes, at some point, there's always going to be hype in the industry. And what that does then is you have a lot of VC dollars and there's a lot of more money, and the more money there's pumped into the industry. I think what the excitement around this is just, quite frankly, what we're seeing from the huge gains in LLM technology themselves, right? I think, and just natural language processing, and just the huge advancements we've made in AI over the last, give or take, the last 18 months or so. I think that's driving a lot of excitement for what this could do for AI, right? It's literally, how do we leverage AI to enhance better security processes? I think there's a lot of excitement around that. We do continue to see this going forward, an investment trend that seems that will continue to grow over the next few years, because I think in general, those are security leaders that they're dealing with alert fatigue, tool sprawl, and they need better solutions. I don't think legacy solutions have done a really good job. I think there's a lot of excitement for what could be unlocked in this category within the industry. And so in general, yes, HyperSOC, a fully driven SOC, or the normal SOC solutions in general that are able to automate as much processes and improve the productivity of teams, improve mean time to detection, as well as just enhancing time and value are a huge area of investment category.
So speaking of consolidations, a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in the legacy SIEM space. So how do you see the migration from SIEM to data cloud platforms and from SOAR to Hyperautomation working together to redefine the modern overall SOC?
Yeah, again, it really does come down to that word consolidation. There's just a frustration at just the number of tools they have to deal with and manage in general, and just the complexities, the integrations and whatnot. I think the goal we're moving to as an industry, quite frankly, is how do we centralize a lot of these solutions? How do we have fewer solutions that are able to give us a lot more of what we need, effectiveness and efficiency at the end of the day? The whole goal is, how do we unify, how do we consolidate into much fewer solutions within the SOC that ultimately deliver what companies really want, and quite frankly, provides a cohesive view of a company's security posture. I think that's pretty much what teams are after.
Francis Odum, we certainly appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.